Amir, A-H-M-I-A. He is the Executive Secretary of G77 and China. He has been since the year 2000. So he has a huge amount of institutional memory residing in him in relation to the work of G77. So we're very honored to have him here in Fiji. And this afternoon he'll be briefing Cabinet and Prime Minister on what we've got coming up next year. He's an Algerian diplomat, a very senior Algerian diplomat, author of many publications. So welcome to first of all, I'd just like to say that we've had to adjust the briefing workshop, obviously because of Hurricane Evan and government's priorities to look after the welfare of those that have been affected by the hurricane. So we've made all necessary adjustments on that, but the briefing has continued with those that haven't had to go around to the west and up to the Northern Division. But just if I could take this opportunity to extend sympathies to the families of those affected by the cyclone. It's obviously a bad one. I've been in Fiji government for 42 years now. Going back to Hurricane Bebe when I was district officer in Alua, and that was a bad one, and I can see that this is a really bad one. So sympathies to the families and those affected. The fact that there was no loss of life, I think, is a great credit to the government and the people of Fiji in terms of disaster preparedness this time around. So on the Fiji chairmanship of G77, can I just give you a little bit of background on how this came about? G77 is a grouping of 132 developing nations. The chairmanship is an important role, as Mr. Amir will be telling you. But just to let you know how Fiji came to be taking on this chair. It's circulated between the three major areas of the South. In other words, Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia Pacific. And it was Asia Pacific's turn to take on the chairmanship next year. So that's 53 countries in Asia Pacific, the giants of India, China, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Indonesia, and so on, as well as the smaller countries of the Pacific Islands and the Indian Ocean and the Gulf region and so on. There's 53 of us altogether. So Fiji was actually approached by our friends in the first place to say, would you consider standing? And this was obviously a huge responsibility. We had to consider it very carefully, whether we had the resources to do so. And there was a decision made after a full report and consideration by Cabinet that yes, that we would go for it. But of course, we still had to be elected at that stage. So after we announced our intention to stand for chairman, the Bangladesh government decided to also stand. So we ran in competition with Bangladesh for a couple of months, and I'm pleased to say that on the day before the election, at the G77 ministerial conference in September, Bangladesh withdrew. And we think that the reason they did so was it was clear to them that well over 80% of the Asia Pacific group was in support of Fiji's chairmanship. I think the people of Fiji, the government of Fiji, can take a lot of pride in the fact that our fellow members of the G77 backed our chairmanship for 2013. This is 132 countries representing the majority of the world's population. I said, yes, we think that Fiji is safe hands. They will carry the G77 chair through 2013. So I mention that point because any sense that we're suffering from isolation in world affairs obviously made a nonsense of by this vote of confidence by the 132 countries of the G77. And obviously we intend as a country to carry out that chairmanship with safe hands. At the end of the year, our aim is to have the international community say that Fiji did a good job in chairing the G77. Really, that's all that we need to do, is to show that Fiji is capable of holding such high international responsibility, and I have every confidence that Fiji will be in that position at the end of 2013. To enable us to carry out that chairmanship role, the New York mission has been doubled in size, and we have carefully selected Fijian diplomats with multilateral experience, and we've got a very competent team assembled there now, ready to take on the work when it gets underway in January. So I'd just like to assure the people of Fiji that you are well represented in New York with this team of young Fijian diplomats who will be carrying very heavy responsibilities. Will obviously be having a fantastic experience in terms of foreign policy matters, because they'll be chairing all the committees of all the G77 committees of the United Nations. So in terms of capacity building, it's going to be a great year for Fiji Foreign Service. You could ask the question, why are we taking on this heavy responsibility? The answer to that is that we have learned to greatly respect and enjoy our rights as a country at the United Nations. The Charter of the United Nations has provisions which we have stood on. The United Nations is a rock that Fiji stands on, and we've learned to love those rights as a sovereign nation. But of course, coming with rights, there are always responsibilities. So we have shown as a country our responsibility in the international community through UN peacekeeping now for over 30 years. But here is another strand of Fiji standing up and showing its responsibility in the international community by taking on this very heavy responsibility of chairing the G77 in 2013. I'd just like to mention one other point before I hand the floor to Mr. Amir, and then after he's spoken, allow questions and answers from any of you. There is a very important meeting coming up on 15th of January in New York, which our Prime Minister will be attending, and that is the handover ceremony. On the 15th of January, the gavel of the will be passed to the Prime Minister, and Fiji will formally take on its chairmanship role from that moment. Now, present at the meeting, of course, will be the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. There will be the President of the General Assembly, Mr. and other dignitaries present. So there will be a big meeting in New York on the 15th of January. And then there will be separate meetings with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, and with the President of the UN General Assembly. And Fiji will host a reception that evening in New York, to which all the G77 countries will be coming. So I think you should be aware of that in media terms, that's going to be a very prominent day for Fiji, 15th of January. So with those introductory comments, I would ask Mr. Amir just to come up and tell you a bit about the G77, and then once he's said his words, we'll go to a question and answer session.